I was thinking about when I did my social work bachelor's and master's degree, I learned nothing about funding, politics, policies, applying for nonprofit status. Like we as mental health professionals have so many ideas. So I was like, oh my goodness, I have this idea to start this nonprofit, not understanding the logistics of it, not knowing what I was doing.
There we go. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Queerprenuers Unleashed. I'm your host, Dustyn Baulkham, pronouns he, him, and I am currently on the traditional ancestral territory of the Okanagan Silk people. And I'm thrilled to welcome Meaghan today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's great. And we've been chatting a while about doing this, so it's
I
great
know.
to finally be here. But let's start off. Tell people a bit about yourself personally.
Personally, okay. I did a guest lecture yesterday and I had to talk about myself personally. I struggle
Amazing.
to, but I'm trying. So yeah, my name is Meaghan Duckett. I use she, her pronouns. I as well live on the Silk Okanagan Nation lands. I was raised in Ontario and moved here about 3 years ago. Personally, I'm queer. I come from a biracial family, so my father is Jamaican and my mom is Scottish. So growing up in a small town as like one of only Black or biracial families was really hard,
Yeah,
but I've taken that into my identity as I've grown up and as I exist today. I have a dog, so I'm a big dog person, not a cat
amazing.
person.
I'm
I'm
with you on
gonna
that.
probably I'm probably gonna offend a lot of queers, but I'm not a cat gay.
There's lots of us dog
Yeah,
gays.
I agree. Yeah, so I'm a Pisces. I like time
Me
in
too.
nature. You're a
I
Pisces.
am.
Water signs.
Yeah, just
Okay.
like on the cusp. I'm
Okay.
late
Pisces
February.
what? Oh
Oh,
my
that
God.
part I'm
Pisces
gonna drop.
Aries. Pisces Aries probably.
Yeah, like end of February.
Okay. Oh nice. Water
Yeah.
signs. Do you love the water? Do you like the water a lot?
I do. I grew up, I built ponds. I don't have any kind of fish right now, but I have a little water bowl over to the side with orchids on
Oh
it.
cool.
I always like having water in humidity. I do.
Yeah. Oh nice. Water
Yeah.
signs for sure.
So what ended up bringing you to Kelowna? Was it, I think you said 3 years ago.
So it in Ontario, COVID happened, so the world shut down. The world was harmed. I was working from home, and my partner at the time had lost her job at the clinic that she worked at, and she had applied to her PhD at UBCO, and then she got in, and then we were like, let's go to the West Coast. So we went, and I'm a social worker by trade, so really I can get a job anywhere, and so that's what brought us here. I don't think we'll ever go back to Ontario. I love it here. Yeah, so I won't be going back.
I always joke because I lived in London for a bit. I'm like, not
Okay.
the fun London. I lived in London, Ontario. It
When
was good. I enjoyed
Ontario.
it there. Don't get me wrong. And then I joke about calling it unterrible. And obviously,
Mhm.
Toronto's the center of the universe and all that fun stuff.
Uh-huh. I know I find myself becoming like more, not a like an Ontario hater, but I'm just like, it's so magical here. And yeah, when I go to the city or I go back to, Ontario, I'm like, I always miss the water and the mountains and
Yeah.
the community here.
I don't get their bagged milk. I really don't.
I grew up on bag milk too, but as an adult, I don't understand it either.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I laugh
I don't
about that
understand.
sometimes. I'm like, it's amazing how on opposite ends of a country you can be so different.
I know, I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I don't understand.
So you in part of your intro, you talked about growing up biracial in a small town, and so I'm curious, pair that with being queer, and maybe talk a bit about when you came out and what that was like.
Oh, I haven't been asked this in a long time.
Oh,
Yeah, like coming out. When I was in high school and growing up, yeah, biracial in a small town, I wasn't out, nor a lot of people weren't really out at my high school. I
okay.
remember thinking back a few queer people, but I remember a lot of bullying happening to those queer people. So it wasn't even like a thought for me, oh, I could potentially be queer as well. So I didn't end up coming out till later in life, probably maybe 8, 10 years ago. I connected more to my queerness and then started dating women and really connected with it. But then thinking back about high school, there were a lot of signs that I was probably queer. I was always kissing girls, I was always around girls. Yeah, so it made a lot of sense.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so when you did come out, how was your family? How was friends? What did that look like?
Yeah, I've been very privileged to my coming out story. So essentially, it was so simple. I had met this girl, I started dating her, and I was on the phone with my mom one day, and I'm like, "Yeah, hey mom," and I started sobbing, and she was like, "Meaghan, what's wrong?" And I was like, "Oh God, I have to tell you something." And she's what? And I was like, "I'm dating a girl." And she was like, "Oh, Meaghan, why are you crying? Why are you crying? Oh my gosh, that's wonderful." So I was just I wasn't surprised. Like my mom is very lovely. My mom's a teacher, so she was very supportive. My siblings were okay, supportive. Took them a little bit, but I think they came too. And then a few years later, my other sister came out. So that was really special. So I'm
Amazing.
the oldest of five, and then I have another queer
Okay.
sister that lives in Toronto. Yeah,
That's awesome. I have a few
yeah.
sets of friends that there's multiple siblings that are under the umbrella.
But yeah, we were in the car one day driving when I was visiting, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm dating girls now." I was like, "Oh, cool, that's amazing. I'm happy." But it's created a bigger connection for us for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
honestly, that's what society should be like is, oh, cool, that's great. I'm happy for you.
yeah, yeah.
Right?
Simple, so simple. It's not that
Yeah.
hard.
If only life was that simple.
I know.
Yeah. But I love asking this question to people is what's something unique about you that other people might not know?
Oh gosh, might not know. I'm actually a lot more chaotic than people think. I think people think I'm like very organized and professional, and I am all those things, but I'm actually very silly and clumsy and impulsive. Yeah, and like manic and doing things and bit bopping around. So I think people sometimes, my close friends, after they get to know me, they're like, "Oh, you're a little crazy." So I think, yeah, I'm an actor sometimes, like when I'm professional, but yeah, I think a lot of people don't know that about me. And I think it's also a Pisces trait to be very guarded with new people. And it takes a little bit to let people see the real you. So
Right.
that's probably something that they don't know about me.
It's good. Yeah. I definitely have that. That part of that I attribute
Okay.
to my ADHD.
And I
The
have
chaos.
ADHD too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was diagnosed 10 years ago. No, I think no, it was more than that. It was like 12 or 13 because it was when I lived in Vancouver. And the
Mm,
psychologist was like, you're like borderline needing meds, and I'd rather not prescribe. And that's good because I would rather not go
yeah.
down that path if I don't have to. There's times I've tried it and didn't like the
Yeah.
after effects.
Yeah.
So
Fair.
I've just tried to find balance, and sometimes it's a struggle, as I'm sure you're well aware.
Yeah. 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 I only got diagnosed like a year ago, but the person that assessed me was like, "You probably had undiagnosed ADHD probably since you were a kid," based off of what I shared. And I was like, "Yeah, it makes sense."
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It
very
doesn't just,
affirming when I got diagnosed.
yeah. Sometimes that's part of it, right? It's just, okay, it's like it explains, for me, it explains so much in the change
Hmm.
in my work when I went from like retail banking to working in corporate office and having to like
Yeah.
work your own schedule and stuff like that. And yeah, it was like, okay. And then I like educated myself on books about what's good and what's bad. And
Yeah.
the one thing that I found really interesting in these books was, I think it was, maybe they're not here, was when he talked about cocaine and people that have ADHD that often become addicted to cocaine because you
Hmm.
become in such a hyper focused state. And it's something I've
Yeah.
never done. I have lots of friends who've done it or do it and like teach their own kind of thing. But I'm like, I just
Yeah.
didn't even want to test fate with that.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just like, nope, I'm good. Thank you. But
Yeah. Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
found
You definitely
interesting.
you learn a lot and like how it impacts other people. Like we're all so different in how
Absolutely.
it shows up for us. Yeah. I find that also too, like a lot. And I could be generous, like business owners, like leaders, like older siblings, like a lot of have a lot of ADHD qualities or on the ADHD neurodivergency spectrum.
Totally.
Yeah, because we can do so many things at once. Yeah.
Sometimes not all really well, but we can do lots at once.
No, sometimes
Or we
they're
get in
half
that.
done.
I call it, I like to refer to it as a superpower because when I get into my hyper focus state, I can accomplish things in a couple hours that would take people days to do. So
Yeah.
you get into it and it's just all of a sudden like, and that's usually in the evening for me if I actually sit down at my desk and start working because I'm like, okay, I want to get this shit done so I can go to bed.
Yeah. Gotta move. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I always like to talk a bit about people's how their personal identity, being queer and whatnot, plays into your professional persona, if it does at all. Because some do it, some people it does, and some it doesn't.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think at like previous jobs, like maybe 5+ years ago, I don't know if it played too much in my identity. I think maybe like some of the places that I was working at weren't super safe or they weren't super inclusive or had inclusive language yet. So I didn't always feel, I would say my partner, and then sometimes people would be like, "Oh, he," and then sometimes I wouldn't correct.
Okay.
So because I just think looking back, I'm like, I don't know if I felt safe in those spaces, whatever it was, management, the agencies. So it didn't show up a lot for me, but it always showed up in terms of like, I always advocated for queer folks. So that always changed. And then in the last, yeah, however many years since I've been here, 3, 4, 5 years, it shows up in every space that I am. Um, I am always advocating for queerness. I am always like talking about my identity. I always will correct if someone says him. I always am. I'm so proud to be queer. I'm always in queer spaces and I want to be in those spaces. So yeah, I think it shows up a lot. And then in the work that we do, I work with so many queer coworkers, queer clients. It's queerness is like everywhere for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. So that's a good segue. Let's start talking about the business side of things. So tell us the name of the business and what you do.
Okay, my pitch. So our legal name is This Space Belongs to Society. It's really long, so I really try to just go by this space. And we are a grassroots nonprofit. We've been operating for just 2 years now. So beginning of October, we started it, and 2 years ago. So we are queer and IBPOC mental health service, serving queer and IBPOC folks aged 12 to 24 on the Silk Okanagan lands. And we are for community by community. So what that means is everybody that works at our program, volunteers at our program, or sits on the board of directors of our program identify as queer IBPOC folks. Yeah, so that's like the foundation of how we operate. We think our program should be informed by the people that we serve. And we provide free mental health counseling, group programming, gender affirming wear. We partner with community in Vancouver to be able to provide free gender affirming wear for folks here. And then we do a lot of like trainings, consults. A few days ago, we were at the Okanagan Nation Youth Conference, the Youth Council event. So that was really awesome. Yeah, that's it.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And the acronym you're using, was it IBPOC? Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I know, but it'd be great to hear from your words. Just explain for someone that's listening that might not know what that means.
Yeah. So Indigenous, Black, people of color. So IBPOC.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you ever use, was it BIMPOC was another one I think I've heard too.
BIPOC, yeah. And then it
BIPOC.
changed to put like Indigenous peoples first. So then IBPOC.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Like with LGBTQ, how we put Two-Spirit first.
Right.
The 2S, similar. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I've heard like BIM, like BIMPOC, so Black, Indigenous, Métis, people of color.
Oh,
I've heard before too. But yeah, BIPOC is probably the one I hear still more commonly. Like LGBT in Canada, we definitely use the 2S more, but you don't see it as much in the States and in other places to put our Two-Spirit friends first.
So yeah.
Well, it's like, 2 years. That's great. Congrats.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
I was actually talking with a friend this morning just over text who's also in events, and she was having a conversation lately with other business owners and just talking about how right now, even established businesses, a lot of people are starting to feel like we're back in like startup mode just because of the economy, the way it's going, and expenses going up, but revenue not matching, and all those kind of things. And so it's been an interesting time. And I recognize that you're a nonprofit, but there's still that entrepreneurial element with it. And I honestly think not enough nonprofits think entrepreneurially. They get stuck in this poverty mindset that we have to break even or lose money. No, you don't. Like you should make money and make a profit, and then you tuck it away for the future because there's going to be years you're going to need that. And if you don't have it, well, that's what we did with Kelowna Pride years ago to build up a reserve account over the years when we had really good years, because we knew there's going to be years it's not going to be great. Right? So
you're so right. I did a guest lecture for the Masters of Social Work class yesterday, and I talked about this. So my friend who's teaching, she was like, come in and whatever you want to talk about. And I was like, okay. So I was thinking about when I did my social work bachelor's and master's degree, I learned nothing about funding, politics, policies, applying for nonprofit status. Like we as mental health professionals have so many ideas. So I was like, oh my goodness, I have this idea to start this nonprofit, not understanding the logistics of it, not knowing what I was doing. And you're right, like not thinking, I always felt like a nonprofit or like a mental health agency wasn't a business, but we're a business. We operate like a business. There's so much that I had to learn. And I've learned so much from the board of directors because a lot of them have the business mindset, the money mindset, like the strategic planning mindset. And I'm here with these ideas about how to support mental health. And so that's really valid that you said that.
And it's key to have those board members that have those skill sets or other partners in business or whatever it is to help offset where you're not as strong in, to really balance each other out. And like I've seen that on boards, both not having a strong complement of experiences, but then how amazing it is when you do. Like one of the boards I'm on now, like we've got a great
Yeah.
from a skill set perspective, diversity in our board, it's still very
Yeah.
white, but,
Yeah.
and cisgender, and I'm like the only queer on it, but
Yeah.
skill set wise, which is great because
But
we didn't have that a year and a half ago. We're getting there.
hmm
But so tell me what inspired you to actually start this space.
there's so many things. There's so many things that have driven me or pushed me to do it. So my a little bit of backstory, my work history, I have worked in the social service mental health field for a little over 10 years now. So I got my
Okay.
first job when I was like 22 years old, and I didn't even know what it was. And I got hired at a group home essentially for youth that are in care or looking to be reunited with their families or have been unfortunately removed from their families by this really harmful child welfare system. So I worked at 22 years old and I had no idea what I was doing, right? Some of these young people were 18, 19, we're existing in the world at the
Right.
same age. So then from then on, I worked in like youth facilities, mental health facilities, healthcare settings, schools, substance use facilities, did a lot of domestic violence, sex trafficking, sex work. And in all of that, I experienced a lot of harm as a queer person of color. And then I saw whoa, listen, whoa, I witnessed so much harm being done to the queer and IBPOC folks. These homes and these shelters and these places have a large percentage of queer and IBPOC folks who attend them, and they're harmed so deeply. The history of the way that mental health and social services specifically have treated IBPOC and queer folks is just absolutely horrific. So in creating this space, it was inspired by knowing that all this harm happened and there needed to be new spaces. It was also inspired by knowing that queer and IBPOC advocates, pioneers, people that have marched, have protested, people that have done community action create programs like this. This has been done forever for community by community programs. So that inspired it. Yeah, recognizing, the history of the nonprofit, like the nonprofit industry was created by the government however many years ago to fix society's problems instead of society. Like, for example, early nonprofits were like to support poverty or to support women and children who were the ones that were deemed deserving. We were put in to fix the problems instead of the government saying, let's have affordable housing, let's provide resources, or hey, nonprofits, come in and fix this. So I recognize that. So that drives a lot of this too. And then when COVID happened in Ontario, it was like the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement. George Floyd had just been murdered. There was so much harm against queer people, trans folks, continuing to hit our media. And myself personally was just feeling so devastated to watch my communities be harmed again and again. So I Googled, I was like, what do we need to do? I was like, we just need to be together. We just need to like have each other and not feel so alone. So I Googled how to make a website, went on squarespace.com,
Yeah.
paid the $120 and created this space. And then for a year, it was nothing. It wasn't registered. It was just a website, like a place for people to go. So I was doing just like one-to-one kind of like support, peer support. I did some like groups. I did a random mental health group for my sister's dance and cheerleading team. Like it was just really random. So that's where it came from.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what would you say has been your biggest challenge in getting to this point? Now you're 2 years in.
Yeah. So then we moved here. Then we got pilot project funding from KGH for 16 weeks. So to get that funding was a challenge. I've been applying for funding for a long time. So I would say funding is a big challenge. Like, as we know, like queer agencies run and serving, like chronically underfunded. There's this book that I'm reading. It's called The Revolution Will Not Be Funded. And it's about the nonprofit complex and like this capitalist system where we're still controlled by the government. And it talks about like, why would the government or funders fund you to dismantle it? So that's always a problem. I'm like, why is the government going to give me money to be like, the mental health systems are terrible?
Yeah.
So I think funding has been a big one. And then like we talked about earlier, I'm a social worker. I'm not a business person.
Right.
So the politics and the bureaucracy is hard for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you and I have chatted before, or maybe we haven't. I thought we did. With some funding too, you need to be a registered charity.
Yeah.
But I also know that's starting to dismantle a bit now that if I'm putting on my Central Okanagan Foundation hat right now, being the chair of the board, we're working towards the removal of the qualified Donee requirement, which means charities. However, we have to be very careful because all of a sudden that puts us. So when we grant to a charity, they become responsible for those funds and how they're used. But if we're granting to a non-qualified donee, all of a sudden now we are responsible for those funds and making sure they're used properly and these different things. So it just becomes a bit of a different ballgame that I know our governance committee is working through, and I'm glad we've got really smart people like a lawyer on that, and I'm not.
Lawyers are great.
Yeah.
That's the hope. That's the hope that it changes. We got a grant in collaboration with UBCO nursing. So we're, it's like the community engagement grant. So basically the university has to partner with a nonprofit or an agency. It's supposed to be a charity. So they partnered with us, and we're essentially co-creating with a committee like 2 nursing modules for nursing students to take, like that they have to take about queer and IBPOC patient care, because there is none. And
amazing.
The idea is we were called by the grantors or the people, and they said that, they only usually give money to the charities, but they're trying to change that. So they gave us the money, and they said that we're the first nonprofit that they've given it to, and they're trying to work towards that. So it's interesting you say that, because it feels like change is hopefully coming. So I feel hopeful. Yeah.
And I don't know if you've heard of Purple before, but it's someone definitely, with Andrew.
Yeah.
They're a good
and Judy,
group. And Jude, yes.
Jude,
yeah. Jude's great. I used to work with Jude when she used to have a restaurant at Big White, and we did Peak Pride up there. So we go back a ways. So she's a hoot.
I bet,
Talking a bit more on the business side of this space, how do you approach marketing and like outreach to the queer community?
When we started, social media was a really big platform. A lot of the young people follow us on social media. Again, as a social worker and as a mental health professional, I have no idea how to market. I have no idea how to do any of that. It was really rough in the beginning because I didn't really have a team yet. And it was just kind of me and my partner who would do a lot of the social media. But then we ended up doing a design day for good, where they take charities or nonprofits who have no skills or little skills about media marketing. And we did a full day with a team of like web designers, graphic designers, leaders. They rebranded us. They redid our website. They gave us a lot of tools. We learned a lot. So I think dealing with the media marketing has been like getting support from people who know how to do it, and then using our Instagram platform. And we just started a newsletter as much as we can, to reach people.
It's a lot of work. I know.
It's so much work. It's so much
Try to pull all the pieces together, and I'm pulling from YouTube, our content and events, and then trying to make it look like so people actually read it. And AI has definitely helped. I'm not gonna lie. That's a lifesaver for me, at least, and I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, because it can. I at one point had 3 full-time staff, and now I have 2 part-time contractors. It's night and day difference, and we're doing way more in terms of the content side and social and all of that. And so thinking back over the last 2 years, do you have a moment, a real memorable like success story or achievement that you've made with this space that really stands out to you?
There's been so many. I think, can I do a few?
Sure. Let's do like maybe top 3.
Okay, top 3. Top 3 would be the way that the community has shown up for us, like you and all these people that like I was just a stranger, and I just reach out and I'm like, hey, I'm doing this thing. What do I do? What's happening? So I think the way that the community shows up, like at events, like referring to us, like promoting us, like supporting and giving advice, or like giving free mentorship and support is just out of control. Like the queer community, the BIPOC community, and allies have showed up. I was really worried in the beginning. Oh gosh, we're going to get a lot of resistance about this program. Yikes. But I haven't had that, thankfully. So that would be one. Another success story, or something that brings me a lot of hope, is honestly just the stories of these young people, hearing them say, I've never had a queer counselor before. I've never been able to share my experience of homophobia on the bus, and a counselor just be like, say yes so deeply, like I understand, and not have to explain it. So I think to see that, and to see the hope in the young people, and like they're the future, and they're coming in hot and bold and loud and like powerful. So I think that's been a privilege as well. So that's second. Third, when we had like our 1-year celebration, to see everybody show up and support and be just so thankful that we're here was another one.
And that first year is a big milestone. for any kind of business or nonprofit, because it takes a few years to really build a base to continue ongoing. And yeah, it's a huge milestone. So congrats on that. But
yeah, thank you. I thought like 10 people were going to show up, and then Sprout was full. And I was like, oh, these people for us, for the kids, showing up for these young kids. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what was I going to say? I lost it. Trying to look at my questions, think if I had. This is the joy where you can remove some stuff.
It'll come somewhere to you.
Yeah, it's gone.
Okay.
So now we've talked about 3 really key successes. I'm curious, have you experienced any like discrimination or biases with this space specifically?
We've gotten some like weird emails from people, from random people, or like call outs like, why are you providing like gender affirming care to kids? Like they shouldn't have affirming care. I'm like, oh God, read a book. Like this is
Get a clue.
wonderful. Get a clue. Like,
Yeah.
come on. So those things like don't bother me because people are just delusional and unkind and don't understand. So that would be challenging. What was the question again?
If you've experienced specific discrimination or biases with this space.
I think sometimes like maybe a little resistance. Like for a while we were trying to get into the schools to do some support, and I don't think they were ready yet. It was a lot of the soji stuff was happening, so I think they just weren't ready. But honestly, like when I think about it, I feel like we've had a lot more support than we have resistance and discrimination. Our clients and the people that we serve experience a lot of discrimination and a lot of harm. But us as an agency, and I try not to put us in those positions, go in those circles. Like I don't want to put our staff or our team in a position where we're at an event or we're somewhere and something harmful is going to happen. So I'm really intentional about where we are and like where we put our energy, I think too.
Yeah. It's important because not every space is safe, right? You need to make sure that people are safe and can feel safe.
Yeah.
And through the last 2-ish years of getting this all together, do you ever have those days where you just want to throw in the towel and be done?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. Not yet.
Okay, that's good.
Because we have so much momentum. I think in the beginning, when I was applying for a lot of funding and just knowing that queer leaders and BIPOC leaders, it's sometimes a lot harder. I was like, oh, can I do this? Can I do this? So I had a lot of doubts in the beginning when we weren't getting money. Nobody was like looking at us. And I was like, just look here. This is so important what we're trying to do. Come on. So I think in the beginning, but not right now, because I feel really hopeful because honestly, like these young people are really hopeful. Like they have so much to give and so much that they see for the future. And if I can walk alongside them, that gives me a lot of hope. Yeah.
I feel like
no, not really yet.
Okay,
and
no,
I
that's
think
good.
too, yeah,
And not everyone does, but some do.
Find one.
It's all good.
Yeah, no, I think too, I know, like I said, queer leaders and IBPOC leaders and staff and people in the world face a lot of harm. And the harm is not because of our identities. The harm is not because I'm queer. And the harm is not because I'm a person of color. It has everything. I'm not the problem is what I'm trying to say. We're not the problem. It's the people. It's the systems of colonization and transphobia and homophobia and discrimination and racism. Those are what's harming us. We're not the problem. The system's the problem. So sometimes I think I'm not the problem. Queer and IBPOC leaders face a lot, but we're also thriving. Like we also have each other. We're trying to create a lot of change. So I also want to remind us, everybody, if you're a queer IBPOC leader, we're pretty badass too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love it. And this actually leads into the next question. Great. And you might have touched on this already. If you need to repeat, it's all good. But curious if you have a vision for what kind of legacy you want this space to leave.
I hope that it leaves a legacy of like safety and safe spaces. Like if I walk away from this space one day and hopefully it's grown and hopefully it's like continuing to serve the community, that I know that the legacy is that there's a building or there's a space or there's a service for these people to go to. That's the legacy. Hope of support, belonging and community. What we all want for queer people and ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's beautiful. And I think it's a good part to end on that kind of piece. I want to go into the lightning round, which I love doing. So it's literally, excuse me, it's just going to be this or that. So it's not meant to have a long thought about it. I'm going to give you 1 or 2 options, or like 2 different options, and you just pick one that resonates with you.
Okay, easy.
Okay. I'm going to mute and quickly clear my throat here before.
Okay.
Cute.
Yeah.
So dinner at a fancy restaurant or a home cooked meal?
Home cooked meal.
Multiple short vacations or one long vacation in a year?
Multiple short.
How about Mexico or Hawaii?
Mexico. I love Mexico.
Okay. Watch a movie or go enjoy live music?
Live music.
Okay. Spain or Portugal?
Spain. Yeah.
Vancouver or Victoria?
I've never been to Victoria yet, so Vancouver. But I know Victoria is probably
Yeah.
better.
It's different.
Yeah.
How about Montreal or Toronto?
Toronto. Toronto's special. Toronto has a lot of history for queer people too.
True.
Yeah.
Montreal has some good history there too, but different.
It did, yeah.
Are you an early riser or do you like to sleep in?
I'm an early riser.
Yeah. And if you had the option of either of these two, would you rather drive somewhere or fly somewhere?
Fly somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to
Audiobooks?
drive.
Yeah. I like road trips, but I do a lot of driving.
Yeah.
Audiobooks or real books?
I struggle with books because I have ADHD, so I'm going to say audio.
Okay. I always ask this for the business, but for the nonprofit, do you typically do like debit or credit for most purchases?
I don't spend, I don't know. I don't
Okay, fair
spend
enough.
money.
It might not, yeah, that's all good.
A card.
There you go.
Okay.
A bank or a credit union?
Oh gosh.
What do you use for
business question?
What do you use for this space? Do you have the bank account at a credit union or do you have one at a big bank?
Like a Scotia bank.
Okay, so
Like a
bank.
business
Yep.
account. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
The next question I usually ask is dog or cat, but I already know the answer to that one. Dog,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
Spotify or Apple Music?
I'm an Apple Music. Yeah.
Me too.
Sorry, everybody. I know.
No, I'm with you on that one. Most people are Spotify, but are you a popcorn fan?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about pineapple on a pizza?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
The next ones are just a couple word answers. What's your favorite type of music?
Afro.
Okay. Favorite time of the year?
Summer.
And what's your favorite place to travel for a vacation?
Mexico.
Is Mexico?
Mexico City. Yeah, I have friends there. Yeah.
Awesome. I just got a few kind of last questions just to wrap everything up today. And how do you handle work-life balance and self-care as an entrepreneur?
I learned a lot about self-care, work-life balance, like I talked about earlier in the field, because like you working in these like frontline spaces where you see so much suffering and harm. Like in the beginning, I would take it home with me. I wouldn't sleep. I would really struggle with these stories. So my body and whatever, my skill set, like really developed these self-care and separation early on in my career because I was like, I want to be sustainable. I want to be here. So I think I balance it quite well. Like after a certain time, my computer's off. On the weekends, I'm not working. Don't call me, don't text me. I really put a lot into my self-care and like what I do on the weekends and how I spend my time outside of work. Work is only a part of our life. Like work is only a part of our identity. So I really want to, honor who I am too outside of being like a business owner or a staff.
Beautiful. Do you have any favorite books, podcasts, audiobooks, or mentors that have inspired you along the way?
Mentors, it was like I didn't have a lot of queer IBPOC leader mentors throughout my career so far. A lot of social service spaces are quite white and dominated by cis women. So I think that was really hard. I actually I'll show you the book because I saw that question. So I have it here. So there's one book that inspired our program. It's by Zena Sharman. It's called The Care We Dream Of. So in our proposal, it was about that. And it's about creating transformative spaces for queer people, built by queer people. Braiding Sweetgrass inspires our program a lot. Pet is a great one. It talks a lot about, they call it the revolution, but essentially it's activism and using your voice. The Revolution Will Not Be Funded is a nonprofit book and talks about being a nonprofit in a capitalist system and how we can dismantle that. And then another book that inspired our program it's called My Grandmother's Hands, and it talks about racialized trauma in our bodies. So I always thought a lot about all these books when writing proposals and informing our program.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. It's my show and tell.
I love it. It's great. Last question I like to end on is what advice would you give other queer individuals who are looking to or aspiring to be an entrepreneur?
I think do it. And I think we get a lot of fear and it's really intimidating and the world of business is really scary. Absolutely. Yeah. But I think I would tell them to do it. And I think I would tell them to find their community and their people to help you do it. We don't need to do things in silo. Our world has moved so much away from community and doing things collectively to this siloed, individualistic way of doing business. Yeah, I think, yeah, don't do it alone. You don't have to.
So do it, but don't do it alone.
Yeah.
I
And you
love
can
it.
do it. Yeah.
Totally.
And you'll do it.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the world needs you in these positions of power, in these positions of influence. Like you should be here 100%.
absolutely. That was well said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Meaghan, thanks so much for being here and talking about the space. I really appreciate it. I know obviously we work together out in the community and we'll likely be seeing each other this weekend, which as this comes out will be last weekend, but you know how it is,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I'm looking forward to. Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. And also thank you for providing this platform for queer business people. Yeah. Super important. And this is
Good.
fun.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And I think it's important, right? Because we need to see ourselves out there. Growing up,
Hmm.
many of us didn't see queer people in places like this. They were probably there, but we didn't know they were queer.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. And it's good to also share the cool stuff that queer people are doing.
Yeah. Yeah. We're
Awesome.
here. We're thriving.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not
So,
going anywhere.
no, exactly. Awesome. Thanks again. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.